Okay, hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Scaling Brokerage podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Billy Wilson. He's here to share some insights and some, ideas into growing and managing a thriving business. First and foremost, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Billy?
I am the owner broker of Proactive Real Estate Services. We are in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia. That's Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, Portsmouth, and also includes Hampton and Newport News. That's on the East Coast, obviously. I have been doing real estate in one form or fashion since 1987 is when I first got my license. I've been an active real estate agent and have basically made a living my whole adult life doing one form or fashion of real estate. I spent a lot of years with Keller Williams, so I was one of the top producers over there. And back in 2019, I wanted to explore property management. And in our state, it requires that you have a broker's license. So I got my broker's license back in 2019 and started my own brokerage with an emphasis on property management. But we do a lot of sales, we do a lot of listings, and knock on wood, the last handful of years have been really, really successful for us.
Okay, yeah, so you started up because of the property management for your brokerage, but you've went into other avenues as well?
Well, I mean, the main impetus for us to start our own brokerage was so that we could offer management services to our clients. That was the main impetus for us to start. And what we quickly found is that with property management, you're working with owners, and then you're working with tenants. And now all of a sudden, for every unit that you manage, there's two people there that could do traditional real estate, right? Tenants want to buy, and sometimes owners want to sell or buy additional rental properties. So we've leaned into that sphere of influence, of the people who are basically our core in our property management business, and we're leveraging that into sales.
Okay, yeah. So you're basically generating leads from just the property management, which turn into sales for the real estate?
Right, exactly. Right,
Nice.
right. Yeah.
Okay, what type of challenges do you have to face, starting a
Well,
property
I mean,
management?
so starting up, if you're looking at, well, just like anything, right? So just for the brokerage in general, I know there's a lot of brokers out there that are running small concerns. So obviously, again, different parts of the country are going to require different things. So in Virginia, number one is you got to have a brick and mortar, right? So nowadays there are all these spaces that you can go in and rent, the executive suites and things like that. But as you're starting out a brokerage, number one is you got to figure out, where am I going to do business from? And then, you got to look at, just like any business, what's my overhead going to be? What are my taxes? What are my insurance? What kind of advertising do I need to do? What's my E&O insurance? All those types of things. And I've been a serial entrepreneur. I mean, I've had businesses my whole life. So understanding that, look, I know that every month I'm going to have a certain amount of money that I'm going to need to generate just to be able to keep the lights on. But again, those aren't necessarily, I wouldn't call those challenges, but those are things that if you are going to start your own brokerage, you need to understand, hey, literally, what is it going to cost me to be in business and just keep the lights on? And then, what is it going to cost for me to, how much business do I need to do to make a living? In regards to the property management space, I mean, what we found is we're managing just under 500 doors right now. We have a big audacious goal to get to 1,000 doors this year. That space right there, we quickly realized that's even though it's real estate related, it is a different business because of the amount of interactions you have regarding maintenance. There's a lot of compliance issues. We do a lot of vouchers or Section 8 rentals that people know about. So there's a different level of understanding how those leases work, things like that. But, if you're in the real estate space for a while, here in Virginia, you have to be a licensed agent for 3 years. If you've been in the traditional real estate space, opening up a brokerage or starting a property management, I would say that those hurdles are pretty easy to get over.
Okay, yeah. So there's nothing like too challenging in becoming a broker, running the
No,
business.
well, passing the test, right? And then figuring out how to run a business. A lot of people. I mean, this is just like for entrepreneurs in general. So, I've had everything from packaging and shipping stores. I had a interest in a wing place for a while. I did a lot of flipping. I was an investor for a lot of years. And that's really how I cut my teeth managing my own properties. At one time, I owned 70 houses. But like any entrepreneur, or any business owner, owning your own brokerage, it's just like owning a business, right? So you boil it down to it's just widgets, right? You just happen to be in the business of servicing clients that are buying or selling real estate.
100%. So
Yeah.
how do you like market your business, and how do you, find new successful, ways to get people to want to join you and
Yeah.
customers?
So as we're growing so there's two things, right? So how are you growing your transactional business? And then how are you growing your agent count, right? So there's two different things there, but sometimes they're same. So we do a lot of this is something that took me a while to realize. I don't know if you guys can tell by looking at me. I am a little bit older, right?
Yeah.
But we do have. Oh, you shouldn't have said yes so quick.
No.
But one of the things that I've been fortunate is I've surrounded myself with a lot of young people. And I remember when I got my license back in 1987, I was fresh out of college, and I remember I would get an appointment with somebody. And back then, if you're in your mid-20s, nobody trusted you with real estate. And now I think there's an inverse. I think it's if you would have told me back then, back in the in the mid-80s, that hey, this is a great job for a young person to be into, I would have said no, it's too difficult. People don't trust you. But now there's a little bit of an inverse because a young person who's in their mid-20s, they can go in and say, well, listen, I can leverage social media. I can leverage TikToks. I know how to do all this type of, computer stuff. And so for me, who I begrudgingly come to this and realize how important, SEO is and doing videos and Instagram and Facebook. I mean, that is such a powerful tool. But I'm just not as adept. So fortunately, we have surrounded ourselves with a lot of young people that know how to do that. And right now, it used to be that there was a lot of outbound calls, and I still do that a fair amount. I do lead generation every day. So I'm talking to buyers and sellers and, to try to get, people to come on board with us. But if you're not, leveraging, SEO and things like that, then really, it's a difficult, mountain to climb. So for us right now, as we're getting, let's say we're out there trying to get property management clients, SEO is a great way for us to get potential business. I make outbound calls to for rent by owners. I call for sale by owners still. And what we're able to do is, like, for instance, our outbound calls to for sale by owners, we're calling up and offering them a plan B if the house doesn't sell. Hey, if it doesn't sell, you can utilize our property management services. And then I'm also communicating so that's how we're generating our property management leads, is outbound calls and then SEO. So people are just Googling property management in Norfolk, Virginia.
Yeah.
For growing our agent base, this is a little bit unique, right? So we are very, very particular about the agents that we are bringing on. We just signed a new agent the other day, and we're trying to be selective, right? So right now, because we're so busy, I don't want to get into a situation where I have to do but so much training. So we're going after experienced agents that have had, 5 to 10 transactions under their belt. I don't want to have to bring somebody brand new in that I've got to explain what a standard property management or a standard purchase contract looks like. I'd rather them go train somewhere else And, what we're going to offer here is probably, a little bit more flexibility in, how they run their business. Plus what we're doing is we're also offering them the opportunity to do some property management as well, which gives them residual monthly income. So when we do get approached, and I turned down an agent about 2 weeks ago because she literally didn't have any experience, right? And I was like, well, you might want to go to another company that offers more training. Once you're a little bit more seasoned, if you feel like you want to circle back around, we'd love to talk to you. But right now, I don't have the time to handhold people. So we're a little bit fortunate in that, for us, our focus now has been on um, leaning in heavy into property management and growing the door count, which gets us into conversations with agents, which, has that conversation. And listen, if you're interested in that as well, you can come over and we can talk about how we can help you grow your business. But, one of the things that I've learned over the years is that, and I wish this were the case back in the day when I started out with, and Keller Williams does a really good job with this. I'm a big fan of Keller Williams. They talk about how you need to lead generate. Most people who come into real estate don't understand that it is a sales job first. They think it's about the brick and mortar, and new agents will come in and they'll get on the MLS and they'll be looking at houses and, but no one understands that, look, you've got to find, ready, willing, and able buyers and ready and willing and able sellers. I mean, that's the business, right? The house is almost secondary. You got to find motivated, people who could sell and motivated people who want to buy. And I wish that in the space, if the industry wanted to be more successful, there'd be more focus on sales training, typical sales training, than there would be on, hey, this is how you fill out a contract. And I know that's important, obviously, because compliance issues, things like that. But most sales contracts, layman just coming off the street can fill out the blanks in a typical sales contract. Those things are pretty boilerplate. I don't think there's enough emphasis put on traditional sales skills. That was
100%.
a little bit of a rant there. I apologize.
No,
But,
I appreciate it. Yes,
yeah,
you're looking
yeah,
for more like quality and, experienced agents that, know the ropes and aren't,
yeah. And so, listen, I think the traditional model of brokerages over, since I've been in the business has been, hey, we need to recruit 10 agents every month to keep 2. And what ends up happening is that it's just this turnstile of unsuccessful agents. And you look at it every year, right? And they always talk about how it's not even the 80-20 rule, man. It's like the 95-5 rule. It's like only 5% of the agents are doing any kind of transactions. I think that I haven't looked at all the most recent stats. I know there's been a lot of agents who've left our marketplace, but traditionally there'll be, like 7,000 agents and, only 1,000 of them have done any transactions. There's 6,000 agents that have done one transaction or less. And it's like, well, you can't make a living doing that, right? And it's always been a little bit surprising to me how the mindset for most brokerages is we got to add agents, we got to add agents, we got to add agents. Let's bring 10 on and hopefully 2 will produce. And instead of bringing on 10, would it be better to be a little bit more discerning about who you bring on 2 really quality agents that you can invest time in and develop them, and then you're ultimately going to be more successful. And, I don't know. I mean, far be it for me to try to change the industry, but for us, now that I own my brokerage, again, what I'm less concerned about is just bringing on a whole bunch of agents that are just going to basically fill desks and fill offices, but not produce. And then that's a whole different conversation. Now you're holding hands and you're trying to counsel people and, be a shoulder when they're crying because they can't make their payments or they can't make their car payment, right? It's a difficult business. But I say it, well, it's like I'm stealing this from Tom Hopkins, right? It's the most lucrative hard business or the easiest bad paying. It's the hardest well-paying job you'll have or the easiest low-paying job you'll have, right? So
yeah.
I butchered that a little bit. I apologize, but the gist of it is that, um, it's hard, right? It's hard getting these transactions to the table. I mean, we're working with a difficult one right now, with my business partner, Gary, and, it's just like, man, the amount of stuff people have no idea, on the outside. They think that agents, the TV shows have done us a huge disservice over the last 10 years. Everyone thinks that, everyone is Ryan Seahart or whatever the guy's name is, and everyone's making $1 million, and man, that is just not the case. It is a grind, and agents who are making 3%, I mean, they are earning every dollar of that. But again, for us, as we're developing and evolving, we're trying to bring on agents again that have cut their teeth somewhere else. They have some transactions under the belt, and I think that what we're adding to them is maybe some other venues that they can tap into, some buyers and sellers that they might not have been able to tap into. And again, that's specifically, tenants that you can convert into buyers, and then, a group of owners that will eventually sell their rental properties or might be looking to buy something else. There's a whole different sphere, an additional sphere they didn't have access to before.
100%. And I know like the industry's constantly changing. You said this year you want to get to 1,000 doors, but do you have any ideas about the future, like how you're going to stay ahead of the curve and what you think is going to happen?
Well, I mean, again, when we started this out, and kind of restructured our the ownership and the upper level management, our big goal was to 10x what we had. So at that time, this is just like a year and a half ago, we had 300 doors. So our ultimate goal was to be at 3,000 doors. And again, it's an interesting, the property management business, again, it's real estate related, but it's different. For us to get to 3,000 doors, now we're talking about, the model's changing a little bit where it's more acquisitions and mergers with other property management companies. So we're leaning heavy into systems, automations. I mean, we're doing some stuff right now that, again, as an old guy, I'm like looking at this technology. I'm like, holy cow, man, it's just amazing. Like all the stuff that's coming down the pipeline with AI. I'm telling you what, right now, and you probably get these calls too, right? I get, 2 or 3 random AI calls. And I'm telling you what, people that are my age, if they didn't know that it was AI, they would be in a full-blown conversation with a bot. Now I know because we're experimenting with it, but like they'll have these calls that come in and you can hear like background noise that's purposely put there that makes it sound like there's a group of people calling. I mean, it's ingenious, right? And I just don't know what the technology is going to be and how, automations and artificial intelligence is going to change all businesses. But for the real estate space, especially in regards to lead generation, which is the most difficult thing for agents. So again, there's just going to be this ebb and flow. I really believe that, technology is only going to take you so far, but there's going to always have to be a human component, and it's going to be relationship driven. And one of the things that we're trying to stress in our management side is that we want our property managers to have a relationship with the owners and the tenants. And ultimately, what's going to happen is that I think people who want quality service, and this is the service industry, right? Ultimately, people are going to want to develop relationships. You use the artificial intelligence and the automations and all those things to carry some of the water, but ultimately people are going to want to deal with people they can communicate with and have a face-to-face with and talk to. So I think that as we move forward, I think that our biggest challenge is going to be, deciding on how you utilize, this technology and somehow marry that with old customer service, which is, touching people, right? I mean, communicating with them, get them on the phone. Back, I was a top producer at Keller Williams for years, and I would get on the phone, and this is, all through the 90s. Well, yeah, all through the mid 2000s. and I was a big for sale by owner. So if anybody's in the industry, right? I mean, like when you would go in, your brokerage would say, call for sale by owners. Well, I took that to heart. I was a big believer in scripts. I believe that to this day. I use them daily. But I would literally get on the phone and I would call from 9 to 12 o'clock, and I would contact every for sale by owner. And I got really, really good on the phone. But now nobody answers their phone, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So,
Yeah.
so really it's like, so if I want to reach out to a for sale by owner, how do I bridge that technology gap, right? So now what we do is, we're sending out texts, right? Because people don't answer their phone and people don't answer their emails either, right? So texting now seems to be the the most efficient way to communicate with people, and it's terrible. I mean, I think that texting is it's a good way to give people quick information, but now everyone is just using texts and emails as a as a shield, right? They don't want to call, and I don't understand it, right? I my biggest frustration is when you're trying to do a real estate transaction and somebody is texting you, basically texting you, questions and information that, man, we've got to talk on the phone about this, right? Because it's too vague on a text. You can misinterpret, a text. And it's difficult trying to get younger agents on the phone. It's just like, hey, call me. We can fix this in 2 minutes if you call me, right? As opposed to having 10 texts go back and forth and saying, like, I don't understand what you mean. Are we doing the termite inspection? We're not doing the termite inspection, right? Just give me a call. We can solve this now. But younger people right now, I think that, if anything, challenges that we're going to meet moving forward is that I guess it's like a pendulum that swings back and forth, right? Where it used to be only phone calls and then it was a little bit of texting. Well, now it's only texting and a little bit of phone calls. And I think that we need to kind of bring that pendulum back in the middle a little bit where people aren't so reticent about picking up the phone, so they can have a little bit more of an in-depth, less than nuanced or more nuanced conversation where, there's no confusion. And I think that moving forward is, if you're going to grow your business, do you want to have people in your business that are not afraid to get on the phone and talk to people, build real, true relationships, and not 100% rely on technology, but understand that you can leverage that to help you grow your business, but you can't be totally reliant on it. I don't know if that helps, if that answers the question or not.
I don't know. Perfectly answered. Yes, we need to integrate technology, but not rely on it too heavily.
100%. Yeah. You said that
100%.
in 1 second. It took me 10 minutes to say. So well done.
I just summed up what you said, so I just stole from
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, do you have any advice for new brokerage owners that are just starting out like this day and age?
Yeah. So, for me, I wish I could, I listen to so many podcasts right now. I mean, again, more technology and what an amazing way to learn by people who've already been through the wars. And that would be something I would say is just try to educate yourself as much as you can. And there's no reason to try to reinvent the wheel, right? If any advice, I would say that if you are going to open up a brokerage, be really, really strict on, what type of business you want to have. It's very, very difficult to be all things to all people. More on the individual agent side, like again, one of the newer agents that we brought on, I was talking to her about, if I had to start all over again and I were just an individual agent, I would become an expert in one facet. And it might be, duplexes, right? I'm going to know every duplex in my market. I'm going to know what every duplex sold for. I'm going to track down through the tax list, every person who owns a duplex, and I'm going to focus on duplexes. Hey, this duplex in this area, the rent should be this. Hey, if you want to sell it, this is the price. If you want to buy it, this is what your ROI is going to be. I would know everything there is about duplexes. And if you became an expert in one, maybe two things, and you were the go-to person for that, you'd make a tremendous living. And it could be everything about, it could be, waterfront condos. It could be small apartment complexes. It could be, 4-bedroom houses in a particular neighborhood, right? But I think that, you can get big by going small, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sniper rifle as opposed to a shotgun. And I think that, what ends up happening is people get too broad on what they want to try to do. They try to cast too large of a net, and it's a little bit more difficult, right? I think that ultimately, if you were new to the business, if you were to focus on, a core group of buyers or sellers or whatever, I think that you'd be ultimately a little bit more. I think you'd be more successful quicker, if that makes sense. That would be my
Yeah,
advice:
100%.
is pick something you can get really good at, become an expert at it, and kind of stay a little bit more narrow focused.
100%, man. Yeah. Thank you for the conversation today, Billy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been really helpful. I bet a lot of people found it helpful.
Okay.
Always
Good.
appreciate, giving it back to the real estate community.
Yeah.
Before we sign off,
it's a great business.
yeah, before we sign off, is there anywhere, the listeners can find you? Do you have social media or like a website?
So we're at callproactive.com. I'm more than happy. I love talking about real estate. It's been an incredible journey for me. And again, I've been doing it for a long time. I think it is, and I've owned other businesses too. I tell anybody, if you're going to start a business, before you go out and explore a franchise and what that's going to cost, look at real estate. Just getting your license is a low barrier to entry, and the ROI is just phenomenal. And even now, when we got these rates that are high, what's going to happen? That's going to be the new norm, and people are going to figure out, how to, what they're going to figure out, that it still makes sense to buy real estate. So there's always going to be a need for people who know how to work within the marketplace. But again, I think it's a great business. I think there's room for a lot more people in here who do a good job. And you want to be a professional. I think it's a great profession. So, but callproactive.com. You can get on the website. My contact information's on there. Feel free to reach out if you got any questions about anything.